70-year-old Devinder Ghai is a devout Hindu. He's come to the High Court in London, fighting for the right to be cremated, in a ritual that is routine in some countries but highly controversial here.
They think it's illegal. I don't think it's illegal. And that's why we have come to review them, because the law isn't very clear on that.
This is how Ghai would like to depart this world, in an open-air Hindu cremation ceremony that Hindus consider essential to the peace of the soul. But under British laws, cremations must take place in crematoria, and open-air corpse burning is not allowed. In 2006, Newcastle City Council turned down Ghai's application for a permit to hold an open-air cremation and ruled funeral pyres illegal. However, authorities turned a blind eye when he went ahead with a funeral pyre ceremony for a 31-year-old Indian man in the countryside. He was never prosecuted. Ghai is a world-renowned advocate of Anglo Asian relations, whose works have been honoured by UNESCO and Amnesty International. Now, backed by strong support from Hindu organisations, Ghai is demanding the High Court clarify its position on open funeral pyres.
My generation, they want it very badly. They want to give us a land away from the city in a discreet place, where we can perform our own ceremony.
Opponents of the practice say it is unsanitary, hazardous to health and the environment. Calculations based on UN estimates of mortality rates suggest that in India alone 50 million trees are cut down each year to create funeral pyres, generating more than 8 million tonnes of carbon dioxide.
It is correct to say that the pollution from one of these pyres is significant. The combustion is not controlled in the same way as in a crematorium. There's no proper mitigation of the emissions, there's no chimney.
However, when it comes to carbon dioxide, the main greenhouse gas, the Indian pyres may actually be more environmentally friendly than crematoria.
Because they don't use fossil fuels, they use only renewable fuels, wood.
There's an economic advantage too. Many British Hindus still prefer the traditional funeral pyre ritual and choose to ship bodies to India for a proper ceremony, which can cost up to $5,000.
We will do it between 500 and 1,000. People are saving their money there as well.
The latest statement from the British Ministry of Defence firmly states, "There are inevitably competing views on the appropriate arrangements for disposing of bodies stemming from different views about religion, morals and decency. There's no plan to change the law on cremation." Ghai hopes he can convince the judge to see the importance of funeral pyres for Hindus before it's too late.
I'm a sick man. When I die, I want it.
Andrew Carey, CNN London.
The London High Court is currently reviewing a law that prohibits open-air funeral pyres. If it allows open-air pyres, then the 1.5 million British Hindus in the UK will have a choice of conducting their last rites in the open instead of in indoor public crematoriums. For the claimant, 70-year-old Devinder Ghai from Newcastle, this is now a matter of life and death, quite literally.
That's my religious right, and secondly, that's my birthright. See, and if I die, I want to have an open funeral pyre, and that's why, I thought I better clear that up with them. Because I want my son to light my pyre. I don't want the gas flame to light me.
In 2006, the Newcastle City Council blocked Ghai's attempt to establish a site for open funeral pyres. It said that all cremations apart from the ones at public crematoriums were banned under the 1902 Cremation Act. In 1930, new regulations were introduced, but open-air cremations were still illegal. Ghai's legal team says that the law is incompatible with the European Convention on Human Rights.
The case has been brought on the basis of Article 9 of the European Convention of Human Rights, which safeguards the right to religious freedom. And what we're saying is that the right to a open-air cremation is a manifestation of a religious belief.
Hindu groups say the choice of open-air funeral pyres should be available to people like Ghai.
We believe, Hindus believe, that in order to pass this body on to the next world, it's important that the proper karma or the kriya is done.
Devout Hindus in Britain who want open pyre cremations have been flying their deceased relatives back to India to hold the ceremony according to Hindu rites. The government here says that these are impractical and possibly illegal, but Hindus like Devendra Ghai insist that these are essential. The hearing continues. In London, this is Akanksha Banerjee.
This week, a Hindu man's battle to be cremated in the open air reaches the Royal Courts of Justice. Devendra Ghai is challenging Newcastle City Council, which has denied him the right to be burnt outdoors. His lawyers are expected to argue that traditional Hindu cremations fall outside of the 1902 Cremation Act, which regulates what happens inside crematoriums. Devendra Ghai has already tested the law by organising the first open funeral pyre in Britain since 1934. In July 2006, he presided over the cremation of Rajpat Mihat in a Northumberland field. The 31-year-old Indian immigrant's body was found in a canal in Southall and was, according to Mr Ghai, too decomposed to be flown to India. Afterward, Newcastle City Council ruled the cremation was illegal and the Crown Prosecution Service became involved. They decided an offence had been committed, but a prosecution was not in the public's interest. In March 2007, Sir Justice Andrew Collins gave permission for Devendra Ghai's lawyers to bring a judicial review forward. He ruled a hearing in the High Court was in the public interest. The campaign has caused controversy in the British Asian community. Some prominent Hindu organisations, such as the Hindu Academy, have described it as an outdated and unnecessary. Others, such as the Hindu Council UK, have come to support the right of Mr Ghai and his followers to be cremated as they wish. But a big source of controversy has been Mr Ghai's original claim to have support from members of the Sikh community. This has led to the collection of thousands of signatures from Sikhs who are angry that Mr Ghai wishes to associate them with his campaign.
The fact that he went around canvassing support from the Sikh community, including people from India, and then sort of like presenting that as if it was a fait accompli, that the Sikh community as a whole totally supported his need as if it was the same, that was what was objectionable and offensive. He may have changed his tone now, but nevertheless the damage has been done because he's caused a division within the Sikh community.
The case is due to be heard at the Royal Courts of Justice for 3 days. It's already been delayed for many months. It's likely Mr Ghai will instruct his lawyers to try and take the case to a higher court if his bid fails. As the case proceeds, many of Britain's estimated 560,000 Hindus will be watching events, along with 35,000 Sikhs who signed the petition against it. This is Sabrina Radmore for Sunrise TV News.
There you go, then.
Because we know a survey has actually been conducted where, you know, at least 1 million individuals, Hindus and Sikhs, were actually for, they would rather opt for an open-air cremation. Yeah. And we know that an open-air cremation is much cheaper.
An elderly man fighting for the right to have an open-air funeral pyre on his death is heading for London today to mount a legal challenge. Devendra Ghai is contesting Newcastle City Council's refusal to allow a designated site for natural cremations. Shurina Saga has been talking to him ahead of the start of a judicial review.
This is the temple at the headquarters of the Anglo Asian Friendship Society in Newcastle, and the members here are getting ready to go down to London for a judicial review. Now, Mr Ghai, it's been 3 years since you held a secret open-air funeral pyre in Northumberland, and it was secret because Newcastle City Council said it was illegal. Yeah. Now, tomorrow you're going to challenge that decision, aren't you? Yeah. Why is it so important for you to take your fight to London?
Because I want to be very clear on the law, because we think it's not illegal. Because one, it was banned in 1930, and there was a princess from Nepal who died here, and she was given the open funeral pyre. So if she was given the open funeral pyre, it's not illegal, one. And secondly, you see, there was a man who burnt his mother in the backyard, and when he went to the High Court, he was charged for fraud, but not for burning the body, because the judge said burning the body isn't illegal.
Some people might say it's a little barbaric. Why is it so important to you to have an open-air funeral pyre?
Because it's our religion, the holy books. Even our Pope says that we should have the open funeral pyre, because we can't do the things which we can do it only in the open, not in the chapel. So that's why it's very important for us.
So you believe that you should be able to die by your faith as well as live by your faith?
I live by my faith and die by. And that's what I'm going to tell the other people. Live and let the others live.
OK, well, tomorrow you have your day in court at the High Court and you're going to put forward your case.
Yeah.
How optimistic are you?
Very optimistic. So are my lawyers.
OK, well, we'll be bringing you more on this story tonight in Look North at 6:30.
An elderly man who's fighting for the right to be cremated in an open-air funeral pyre has left the northeast for London to mount a legal challenge. 70-year-old Devinder Ghai is contesting Newcastle City Council's refusal to permit a designated site for outdoor cremations, saying they're unlawful. But tomorrow, the Royal Courts of Justice will hold a judicial review into that decision. Sharuna Saga reports.
Praying for the gods to be on his side, devout Hindu Devinder Ghai is challenging the law so he can have a traditional open-air funeral pyre when he dies.
Because that's my religion, that's my belief. I've always lived with my religion and my belief, so I have to die with that.
Back in January 2006, the Newcastle-based Anglo Asian Friendship Society, of which Mr. Ghai is the founder, made an application for council land to hold traditional outdoor cremations. It was refused. 6 months later, one was held at a secret location in Northumberland. Newcastle City Council ruled that it was illegal, and it is this decision that's now being challenged.
Because it was banned in 1930, but in 1934, a princess from Nepal died, and she was allowed the open funeral pyre. And then in about 3 years back in Leeds, a man burnt his own mother in the backyard and claimed money from the DHS for her. And in the court, the judge said burning the body isn't illegal, but fraud, he was punished for the fraud.
Babaji, as Mr. Ghai is known, is now in poor health, and this human right is his last wish.
Because Hindus never asked for anything, you know. Now, if we can't have the marriage in the chapel, why do we want to cremate in the chapel? We want our own ground. Muslims have been given their own ground. Jews have been given their own ground. Why aren't we given our ground?
If this judicial review is successful, this could be the most significant campaign to promote Hindu religious freedom in British history. Sharuna Saga, BBC Look North, Newcastle.
Who wants to be cremated in an open-air pyre in accordance with his religious beliefs, has told the High Court that not being able to is a breach of his human rights. Today, on the first day of a judicial review, 70-year-old Devinder Ghai from Newcastle described crematorium facilities as a mechanised humiliation of dignity. He's challenging a ruling by Newcastle City Council, who refused to allow a designated site for outdoor cremations, saying they're unlawful. The hearing continues tomorrow. And he's fighting for the right to have his body burned in an outdoor traditional Hindu funeral pyre is tonight waiting to find out if his legal challenge has been successful. Devinder Ghai has been campaigning for outdoor cremations for the last 3 years. He's taken his case to a judicial review at the Royal Courts of Justice, from where Sharuna Saga reports.
Devout Hindu Devinder Ghai lives by his faith and for the last 3 days has been trying to persuade the High Court to let him die by it.
Our leaders, when they die, they get their last rites of open funeral pyre. The Bollywood actors, they get that. So why not I?
The judicial review has raised all sorts of issues, ranging from religious needs to environmental concerns. But the main question that the High Court has to answer is, are outdoor pyres illegal? Because back in 2007, a High Court judge told Mr. Ghai that he could have a full hearing because there was evidence to suggest that it wasn't necessarily unlawful. But as this hearing demonstrates, the Ministry of Justice and Newcastle City Council disagree.
The case is a difficult one. Mr. Ghai wants to manifest his religious belief as a Hindu to have an open pyre. He doesn't want to have an open pyre on a field, unregulated. He accepts the law has to be changed. The changes of the law would require a series of changes on environment, on planning and so forth.
Religious rights cases are very hard to predict, and this is a difficult case that could take weeks for a verdict to be delivered. But there is a little optimism in the air.
Well, it's very fair, and I've got a full faith in the British justice.
If outdoor cremations are eventually allowed, they'll be under strict regulations, so don't expect to see bodies burning on the banks of the Tyne. Sharina Saga, BBC Look North, The High Court, London.
On to other news, and a Hindu man from Newcastle has lost a High Court battle to allow him to be cremated on an open-air funeral pyre.
Devinder Ghai, who's 70, says the pyre is central to his faith and essential to what he calls a good death. But a judge today ruled such cremations are illegal. Ben Chapman reports.
A spiritual ceremony to release the soul and central to the Hindu faith. So argues Devinder Ghai, seen here performing an open-air cremation 3 years ago. He's been fighting a decision by Newcastle City Council preventing the ceremonies. Today he lost his High Court case. Speaking from India, where he's visiting for medical treatment, he vowed to appeal.
We are fighting against Jack Straw. We are fighting against home secting. They say that it's unlawful. Well, okay, now they're not very clear on that, so let's see. What I'm asking is what's my birthright and what's my religious right. I know the final decision would be the Court of Human Rights.
But Newcastle City Council welcomed today's decision. Under the law, the burning of human remains is only permitted in a crematorium. The judge at the High Court today ruled that that law is justified. But Mr. Ghai says it breaches his human right to religious freedom. Dr. Anand is a GP and complementary therapist. Many of his patients are Hindu. He says it's important people are able to choose what happens after they die.
To be cremated in this sort of way, like in the west end of Newcastle, is absolutely not acceptable to any Indian. When we come to a foreign country, we adjust. I think the Indians have adjusted too much. And I really believe it shouldn't be like that. And I think the freedom should be there.
Mr. Ghai says for him this is quite literally a matter of life and death. He says he'll continue to fight for his dying wish to be heard. Ben Chapman in Newcastle.